So is your brain's neurodivergence predetermined, or is there more to the story? Is your brain's uniqueness merely a product of genes or something far more profound? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how traumatic memories are the crafters of a neurodivergent mind, and I'll bring you to an understanding of how your brain structure is a masterpiece of unique environmental interactions. Hi guys, Simon Winovich here. Everyone just calls me Simo. Welcome to the Ultimate Divergence Embracing Neurodiversity YouTube channel. Are you struggling with life on the autism spectrum? Are you open to or currently engaged in spiritual practices? Do you feel disconnected from traditional therapeutic methods for treating autism? If so, you're in the right place, because it's here where we deal with everything neurodivergent and we teach you how to become an ultimate divergent. So in the early 2000s, there was an experiment carried out where two groups of people practiced a finger exercise on the piano. Now, one group physically practiced the exercise, whereas the other group only imagined practicing the exercise. Well, after 5 days, they found that both groups had almost the same level of neural development, with the group that physically practiced only slightly outperforming the other group. So what they concluded from the experiment was that just imagining doing a task created almost the same level of neural development as actually physically doing the task. However, what they failed to recognise was that the group that actually physically practiced the exercise, they also imagined practicing the exercise. Before they actually struck a note, they had to first imagine themselves striking that note. They had to picture themselves in their mind hitting that note. So in actual fact, both groups created the same level of neural development because they both imagined playing that piece. And the group that actually physically practiced and slightly outperformed only did so because the actual physical part was just reinforcement for the neural development they'd already created through practicing in their mind. So the bottom line is, it's our thoughts that are the main creator of our neural structure. With every original thought, we create a new neural pathway, and each time we have that thought again, we reinforce that pathway, and the neural connections become thicker and thicker. This is known as neuroplasticity, and neuroplasticity occurs in specific areas of the brain depending upon what activity we are undertaking at the time. For example, the hippocampus is crucial in memory and learning, and any activity that challenges these functions will cause neural growth in that area. Practicing motor skills such as music and sports will alter the motor cortex. And sensory activities such as playing video games will enhance neural connections in visual and spatial areas of the brain. Repeated thoughts and behaviours form and strengthen neural networks, shaping our brain's neural structure over time. This is a key aspect of neuroplasticity, which allows our brains to adapt and change based upon our experiences and our thoughts about those experiences. Everybody experiences neural divergence to some degree at various times in their lives. Even neurotypicals. For example, if one neurotypical learns to play a guitar and another learns to play the piano, they'll experience neural divergence between each other because the different practices create different neural networks within them. However, at their core, all neurotypicals have the same base neural structure, and this is because of their shared participation in the same socialization process. The socialization process begins in the womb. The fetus feels what the mother feels, and it's through the mother that the fetus begins learning about the world outside. The socialization process is essential for learning how to function within society. It teaches things like language, societal norms, cultural values, and behavioural expectations, which aids in social interactions. Understanding social roles and responsibilities helps a person navigate through their environments. Additionally, the socialization process develops self-identity, which allows a person to identify their place within society, aiding in social continuity and functioning. So guys, if you're liking what you see so far in this video, hit that subscribe button, give that notification bell a bit of a nudge so you'll know when my next video comes out. Give us a like because you help out my channel, and feel free to leave a comment below this video because your feedback is invaluable to me. So fundamentally, the socialization process is similar across all cultures. And even though there are differences in values, beliefs, norms, behaviours, roles and responsibilities across the cultures, the categories and structure of information that is shared during the process is largely identical. And because thoughts create neural structures, this shared foundation creates the base neural structure that we know as neurotypical. And even though there are differences in the cultures that creates a degree of neurodiversity, at the core, their base neural structures are the same across all cultures. The term neurodivergence refers to individuals whose neurological development and functioning differs to that of the neurotypical. Now, these individuals may have conditions such as autism, ADHD, dyslexia, etc. The term emphasises the unique perspectives and strengths that come with these differences. Neurodiversity refers to the broader concept of neurological variations in humans, whereas the term neurodivergent refers specifically to individuals with atypical neurological development. Neurodivergence due to brain injuries, such as from accidents or strokes, is known as acquired neurodivergence. These injuries can drastically alter brain function and structure, leading to cognitive, emotional and physical challenges. For example, traumatic brain injury, or TBI, can cause symptoms such as memory loss, concentration issues, mood swings or physical impairments. Stroke, depending upon the area of the brain affected, can impair speech, movement and cognitive functions. When parts of the brain are irreparably damaged, other parts can take over lost functions through neuroplasticity by reorganising and creating new neural connections. After a stroke, rehabilitation therapies can help retrain the brain to use other parts for impaired functions. For example, speech therapy can aid in regaining communication skills by stimulating areas of the brain associated with language processing. Physical therapies enhance movement and strength, promoting new pathways for muscle control. Occupational therapy assists individuals in relearning daily skills and adapting to new abilities. Acquired neural divergence can also occur in individuals to a degree who have not experienced any type of physical injury. We all know that one person who witnesses an event and then their whole life completely changes. Their personality changes, their outlook on life changes, their life goals changes. They just completely take a different direction in life. Well, this is because that particular event has caused them to think drastically differently about themselves and about life. And as we know, our thoughts create our neural structure, and because they're drastically thinking differently, they're creating drastically different changes to their neural structure. Even if a neurotypical person does experience acquired neural divergence at some time in their life, at their core, their base neural structure will still be neurotypical. And I'll go to the whiteboard just to quickly explain that. So think of it like this, guys. We have a line here. That's our birth point. So at conception we start off down here like a seed in the ground, and we have our growth period in the womb, and then we're born. Now the pathway for a neurotypical is from the time they're born, like depending what country you're in, children tend to have a common core experience. Like here in Australia, of course you start off socialisation with your family and so forth, but then like children here in Australia, in my time we watched things like Play School and Sesame Street, and there was a show called Fat Cat and Friends, and so all the kids watched those. So we were sharing and learning common things, common ideas and common beliefs from these shows. And then at the age of 4 or 5 you begin kindergarten or preschool,
And so you're all together and sharing the same beliefs and ideas and thoughts. And then you went to primary school up until the age of about 12. Again, you're all still together, learning the same things, sharing the same beliefs. And then from there to high school up until about the age of 17. And it's in high school that you start to diverge a little bit, where people are thinking about different career paths. Like I took the more technical career path, whereas others took more humanities career path and so forth like that. And then after 17, some went on to university, some went on to some sort of college or something, and others went off to work. And then those in university, they diversify to different things that they want to study. Same with those who go to college, they diversify to different things. And those who go off to work, they diversify in the different jobs they take. So that's basically your core neural structure of a neurotypical. And of course you get minor divergences along the way, where one child learns to play soccer where the other one learns to play tennis, and one child learns to play the guitar, another one learns to play the piano. But they're just minor divergence. That key core neural structure is created through the socialization processes, that collective of beliefs that everyone tends to have within a culture about the world around them. And that is the same again from culture to culture. Sure, there are differences in the values and beliefs and so forth like that, but the categories of information that are shared, like language and cultural norms and values and all that, they remain the same across cultures. So you still get that same basic core neural structure, just with minor divergences from it. Now, somebody who experiences a acquired neural divergence through an injury or something, somewhere in their life, they get a brain injury and they'll experience divergence from that normal path that they would have taken. Instead of continuing on this path, they'll diverge out. And of course that divergence can happen anywhere in your life. But even with that neural divergence, where it's acquired later in life, you still have this base neural core structure that is neurotypical. So according to my ultimate divergence theory of autism, I believe the neural divergence that we on the spectrum experience is what you could term extreme acquired neural divergence. At the moment, the world is overtaken by this idea that autism is genetically caused, and that hasn't been proven at all. If you go to the National Institute of Mental Health website, which is a subgroup of the National Institute of Health, which is the largest medical research group in the world, both their sites will emphatically state that they don't know what causes autism, and that research only indicates that genes may play a role in autism. So, to me, I believe that the neural divergence that we experience on the spectrum happens in exactly the same way as acquired neural divergence does. I believe that an event happens that causes our brains to take a completely different developmental path than that which neurotypicals take. And I believe that the neural divergence is extreme in our case because it happens so early in the developmental stages. The earlier it happens, the more extreme the divergence is. So for those of us on the spectrum who experience neural divergence, it can either happen to us down here before birth or soon after birth. So our divergence can be here or down here. So that's why I term this extreme neural divergence, because our divergence happens down here before we can develop a neurotypical brain structure. So when our minds create a memory, all of the sensory information we're receiving at the time gets stored within that memory, as well as the emotion that we are feeling at the time. Now, any of that sensory information can become a trigger for that memory. It can be a sight, a sound, a smell, a taste, or a touch, or all of them. And when that memory is triggered,
we re-experience the emotion that was stored within it. So in the case of memories that have negative emotion stored within them, regardless of the level of that negative emotion, those memories have the power to alter our behaviour whenever they're triggered. Once none of those memories are triggered, we move into coping and avoidance behaviours to either try and move away from or eliminate that which is triggering us. So it's my belief that in regards to autism, an event occurred, and this event could happen during pregnancy or early infancy, but this event causes the creation of a memory with high fear emotions stored within it. Now, at this moment, many of you may be there as parents or individuals on the spectrum, looking back and thinking to yourself, well, no such event occurred, and therefore, Simo, you must be full of shit. Well, you have to take two things in account here. Firstly, very few of us can remember anything before the age of 3. So if you are a person on the spectrum trying to look back and locate an event that happened to you while you're in the womb or as an infant, it's not going to happen. Now, if you're a parent looking back, what you have to consider is the fact that what may seem traumatic to a fetus or an infant may seem completely inconsequential to an adult. So in the case of a fetus, the event may be something that the mother experiences because the fetus feels what the mother feels. Have you ever been watching a horror movie when all of a sudden at a particular scene you just jumped in terror? Well, in that moment, your mind created a memory with high terror emotion stored within it, and it designated triggers for that memory. So whenever you encounter those triggers out in the wild, that memory is activated and you re-experience that terror emotion that's contained within the memory. And a good example of this is the movie Jaws. When that came out, people worldwide were terrified to swim in the ocean, because in those moments during the movie where they jumped in terror at the shark, their mind was taking these snapshots and storing that terror emotion within those memories. So whenever people had the thought of swimming in the ocean, instantly these memories were activated and they just started imagining sharks everywhere and re-experienced that terror they felt while watching the movie. Now, this traumatic event may come in the form of something like a toxic shock event, where something was introduced to the mother's system or directly into the infant's. Now, in this modern day and age, where we have such a high level of toxins in our food supply and in our environment, as well as the off-the-charts rates of consumption of pharmaceuticals, not only is this scenario highly possible, it's highly likely, especially when you consider the astronomical rise in rates of autism diagnosis. So regardless of what the actual event is, in the case of autism, it's my belief that the triggers that the mind designates for this traumatic memory or memories are such that access to the socialization process becomes blocked. Whenever the individual tries to engage in social interaction, then this traumatic memory is triggered and they re-experience that negative emotion. Now, this may happen on a subconscious level, but what it causes is for them to move into a coping and avoidance behaviour where they try to move away from that which is triggering, and in this case, social interaction is what's triggering them. So not only does the socialisation process require participation for an individual to access the societal information that the process imparts, they must also be able to openly and freely express emotion. And traumatic memories, when triggered, seriously inhibit this ability. Emotions are essential for connecting with others, understanding social cues, and forming relationships. Through emotional expression, people communicate their needs, feelings, and intentions, which is vital for effective social interactions. So the socialisation process involves learning to regulate and express emotions in culturally appropriate ways, fostering emotional competence, which is essential for navigating social interactions and maintaining relationships. Severe emotional disruption, inhibiting socialisation, can prevent the development of the empathizing cognitive style typical of those considered neurotypical. If social interactions become designated triggers for a traumatic memory, then socialization will become a perpetual negative experience as the linked traumatic memory is triggered with every social interaction. Psychologist Simon Baron-Cohen, the creator of the online autism quotient test, theorized that there were two cognitive styles, the empathizing and the systemizing, and that all individuals had a varying ratio of the two. Those who participate in the socialization process end up developing a predominantly empathizing cognitive style and learn to navigate through life using emotion and empathy, whereas those who are blocked from the socialization process have to find an alternative way of navigating through life. So for those who don't end up developing an empathizing cognitive style due to being blocked from the socialization process, to them the world of empathy and emotion seems totally chaotic and without rhyme or reason. So they end up latching onto patterns that they recognise within their environment in the hopes that these patterns will lead to stability and order within their lives. Now, patterns lead to stability through their predictability. Each pattern that these individuals recognise, they add those patterns to the internal guidance system they are building within themselves as a replacement to the empathising guidance system that they were blocked from creating. So the socialisation process could be seen as a tailor-made information transfer system built specifically for the development of an empathising cognitive style. For those who are forced to develop a systemizing cognitive style, no such information transfer system exists yet in society. Because they are blocked from the socialisation process, they tend to exist in relative isolation and therefore don't have access to a person-to-person information transfer system. And they must rely on the patterns that they randomly encounter in their day-to-day life to build their internal guidance system. And this accounts for why you get such diversity in those that are on the spectrum, is because they have each had to create their own unique internal guidance system based upon the patterns that they have randomly encountered. And all of this in the pursuit of trying to create some sort of order and stability within their life in a chaotic world of emotion. So as per Simon Baron-Cohen's theory of systemizing and empathizing cognitive styles, he believed that we're all a mixture of the two, and that those of us on the spectrum are what he considered extreme systemizers. Now, I do believe that there are some people on the extreme end of the spectrum who are almost exclusively systemizing, but for those of us on the lower end of the spectrum, there is still a large portion of us that is still empathizing. In my case, I used the online autism quotient test, and understanding what Simon Baron-Cohen based that test upon, I worked out that I'm about 2/3 systemizing and 1/3 empathizing. And I've talked about that in a previous video, so I'll put the link to that video in the description below. So what that means for me is there are some areas in life where I can navigate with empathy and emotion, but mostly I have to use systemizing to navigate through. Now, when I was a kid, when I first started school, that was some of the happiest years of my life, and I had lots of friends. But I think when children are very young, they are very accepting and forgiving of difference in others. It's only as they get older that they become less so. So as each year went by, I found myself imperceptibly slipping behind my peers in ways that I just could not fathom. And eventually the bullying started because my difference became so obvious. And then once I left school and was out in the big wide world in the workforce, well, that's when my shortcomings really came to the surface. And the areas that I could use emotion in, they just deteriorated even further. Like, that area was shrinking and I was becoming more and more disconnected from those around me. And there were just these areas of life that I was just absolutely clueless about. So think of it like this way. For neurotypicals, when they create a empathizing cognitive style, think of it like an electronic circuit board. That's their internal guidance system, is this empathizing electronic circuit board. Well, for me, it was like my circuit board just had all these areas where the components were completely missing.
So some areas I could navigate through the empathizing part, but in those areas, when I encountered areas of life where I needed that particular area with the missing components, I was just clueless. So I had to, through using patterns and logic and reasoning and that, I had to create like these logic patches that just went over these missing areas in the circuit board. So I ended up creating like a hybrid internal guidance system where I can switch in and out. Sometimes I can use empathy and emotion, and then I can switch into systemizing when I encounter these blank areas. And I think that is the case for most of us on the spectrum, is that we create this self-made, unique internal hybrid guidance system. And that's what creates a lot of the diversity between those of us on the spectrum. So it's during the developmental years, from our time in the womb until early childhood, that we develop our core neural structure. And any interruption to the natural developmental path will cause major neural divergence. And in the case of autism, it's extreme neural divergence because of being blocked from the socialization process, which is a major core key component of the developmental process. For us on the spectrum, we have to think vastly different thoughts to those who have a predominantly empathizing cognitive style, because we have to navigate our ways through a chaotic world of emotion that wasn't built for us. And it's our every vastly different thought that creates vastly different neural pathways, and hence a vastly different neural structure. Now, autism has been designated a mental disorder by the mental health establishment. But if so, how do you explain the exceptional abilities that many autistics display? I mean, let's look at physical disorders. I've got terminal cancer, but wow, it comes with some amazing gifts, said nobody ever. Or, yeah, I've got heart disease and it's probably going to kill me, but wow, it's given me some amazing abilities, said nobody ever. I mean, pure logic and reasoning would tell you that autism is not a disorder. There is something else going on here. For those of us on the spectrum, we're not inherently disabled. We're disabled by a world that wasn't built for the systemizing cognitive style. And the many challenges that we face being on the spectrum is not due to being somehow broken inside. It's due firstly to our initial emotional traumas, and then to having to develop a systemizing cognitive style and working out some way to navigate through a world built for the empathizing cognitive style, and then add to that being blocked from the socialization process. We didn't learn the skills, social skills necessary to be able to have successful social interactions. So all these together causes further traumas, which pushes us further into socialization, which further exacerbates the problem. So the only way to break this vicious cycle is to target the problem at its core. And the core of the problem is the negative emotion stored in all our traumatic memories. Once you start to dissipate that negative emotion stored in our traumatic memories, our negative emotional triggers start to disappear from our outer world. And instead of being imprisoned by them, the world starts to open up to us. And we can allow our exceptional abilities to start to flourish, because we're no longer expending all this energy trying to dodge our emotional triggers. So I didn't realise I was on the spectrum until the age of 50. At the age of 25, I'd become so dysfunctional in society that I knew if I didn't do something drastic to turn my life around, I was going to either end up dead or in prison. So in desperation, I applied to university to do a Bachelor of Psychology degree, thinking that that's where I'd be able to find all my answers. But once there, I was soon disillusioned with the direction the mental health establishment was taking, and there was something inside of me telling me if I followed down their path, I'd end up being imprisoned rather than empowered. So by chance, a guy came to town holding a seminar on how the mind worked, and so I went to it, and my key takeaway was that my problems in life were due to my traumatic memories and the beliefs and the negative beliefs that those memories had created. So that sent me on a 25-year quest to find techniques for dealing with those traumatic memories.
And as each year went by, I found better and better techniques, till eventually at the age of 40, I found what's called faster EFT. Now, faster EFT was by far the most effective technique I'd ever encountered. And that's not to say that was the only good technique out there. That was just the one I stumbled across. And it changed my life in many, many ways. But then by the age of 50, when I realised I was on the spectrum, with all the knowledge I accumulated, I created my own clearing technique that I called the ultimate divergent superconscious clearing techniques. And that just changed my life in ways I could not have imagined. When I realised I was on the spectrum, one of the first things I did was join all these Facebook autism and Asperger's groups. And one of the first things I noticed was that all these people in these groups were struggling with challenges that I'd managed to overcome. And they thought they were unchangeable because they were due to autism. So I looked back at my life at what I'd done differently, and the thing that I had done differently was that I believed that all my problems were due to the negative emotions stored within my traumatic memories. So that's what made all the difference. So until the mental health establishment stops seeing us as having a mental disorder and being somehow broken inside, they're never going to work it out. I mean, surely there's a clue there when we're capable of doing all these amazing things as far as understanding quantum theory, rocket science, engineering, all that technical stuff. And yet seemingly the only thing that we don't understand is social interaction. But even that is a red herring, because there was an experiment carried out where they had 3 groups play a game of Chinese whispers. And the game of Chinese whispers, I'm sure you've all played, but you get a group of people sit in a circle and a message is whispered in the first person's ear, and then they have to pass along the next person and so forth around the circle until it gets back to the original person. And the original person has to tell you the original message they said and then the message that they got back. Well, the 3 groups of people, one group was all neurodivergents, one group was all neurotypicals, and one was a mixture of the both. So they found in the neurodivergent group and the neurotypical group, the message that came back had the same level of accuracy, whereas the mixed group, their message that came back was just way off point. So what that concluded was that neurotypicals have no problems communicating with neurotypicals, and neurodivergents have no problem dealing with neurodivergence. But when you mix the two, neurotypicals have problems with neurodivergence, and neurodivergents have problems communicating with neurotypicals. So the clues are all there. It should be, to me it's inherently obvious what's going on here. And they have all these popular theories, but there are other theories out there that don't get the funding and the backing that are more plausible than them. Simon Baron-Cohen's theory of empathizing and systemizing cognitive styles, it explains both the challenges as well as the exceptional abilities that many autistics display. And to me, for it to be a valid theory, you have to explain both. And yet all the mental health establishment is focused upon is the challenges that we face on the spectrum. So in reality, we haven't even begun to explore the possibilities of the human mind. To me, the fact that neurodivergents display all these amazing abilities is a major clue that we need to be looking further in that direction. What if rather than neurodivergence just being an unconscious reaction to environmental events, we could consciously take control of the process within ourselves and create neural divergence? Well, that's what I'm trying to do all the time. Now, I look for as many opportunities as possible to break away completely from mainstream thought and live at the frontiers of thought, where I can create original thought within myself and therefore create original, unique neural divergence within myself. I mean, what if neural divergence is the gateway to exceptional abilities like psychic abilities and extrasensory abilities? What if patterns are the gateway to accessing these abilities? Nikola Tesla himself
used to say if everybody knew the power of 3, 6 and 9, they would understand the secrets of the universe. And Nikola Tesla was considered to be a neurodivergent. So there you have it, guys. I personally don't believe that we are inherently predetermined to experience neural divergence from the point of conception. I believe the extreme neural divergence that we experience on the spectrum is due to acquired neural divergence in response to an adverse environmental event. This forces us to create a systemizing cognitive style, and all of the challenges that we face being on the spectrum is due to either our initial emotional traumas or the traumas we accumulate after that point, or due to having to operate in an empathizing world with a systemizing cognitive style, or from the lack of the social skills needed for successful social interactions because we didn't participate in the socialization process. However, the good news is, if we go in and clear out all that negative emotion from our traumatic memories, our negative memory triggers start to disappear from our outer world and life begins to open up for us, allowing our exceptional abilities to emerge and flourish. So, for those of you who've stuck with me until the end of this video, as per usual, you're absolute bloody legends. Below this video, I've stuck a link to a blog post for those of you who want to know more about my ultimate divergence theory of autism. There's also a link to my course, which is the Ultimate Divergence Navigating Autism and Spiritual Empowerment course for those of you who want to learn how to clear that negative emotion from your traumatic memories. And there's also a link to my Facebook page where I keep you up to date on my latest blog posts, my latest YouTube videos, and everything neural divergent. So until next time, guys, I'll catch you later.